Hi everyone, we're going to be doing a tutorial today with the Razbam Sims T-2 Buckeye. The documentation is a little confusing and a little bit thin, so I thought this would basically make it easier for anyone who's interested in this particular aircraft, and also as a way of introducing some of the things and steps that you need to do in order to use AI carriers too, plus the additional carriers that are available out there. The reason I like flying this particular airplane is it doesn't have all of the automated systems, the heads-up display, the autopilot, and all that kind of stuff, which means that you essentially have to manually fly the aircraft. For me anyway, that's a lot of fun, and that's why I've chosen this aircraft. It's a very interesting airplane, and I think Razbam's done a great job with it. Okay, that being said, let's talk a little bit about some of the keystrokes that you need to have mapped in order for you to be sure that you're going to be able to use the carrier. Alright, so we come up to Options, Settings, Controls, Buttons, Keys. Essentially there's three things you're going to need to make sure you've got mapped. Okay, first one is the launch bar. Okay, Shift U, I have it mapped to the launch bar, extend and retract. That's the thing that hooks into the catapult shuttle cock. And the second neat thing you need to do is to get the takeoff assist stuff mapped. Alright, and you can see that right here. Okay, takeoff assist arm and disarm I have mapped to Shift I. And then when you are finally ready to pull the trigger on the catapult, that's the takeoff assist trigger, I have it mapped to Control plus space. So with those three things mapped, you're in good shape now to use the catapult once you're on board the Nimitz. Okay. Alright, now let's get into a little bit of the procedure for actually creating or spawning the carrier. In order for you to do that, you have to do a couple of different things. Obviously you have to set up and import AI carriers, the software, which you can Google and find out about. I actually have the shortcut for that in my system tray. So assuming you've got all that stuff up and running, the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to have to go to the map and open it. And what this does is basically it loads all of these waypoints into FSX, into the RAM, so that you now have the ability to place the aircraft carrier at any one of these waypoints that you see here. For my purposes today, I'm going to use this one, QE Pro. So that's where we're going to be placing the carrier. By the way, we are in Fort Lauderdale, which is obviously close to the ocean. Okay, so we have waypoints now that we can bring the aircraft carrier to. So now let's start AI Carriers 2. Now you'll see that it's spinning, 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 and once it stops you know that you're up and running. Okay. So now it's time to create or spawn a carrier, and we do that by going up to add-ons, and you'll see AI ships here and AI ships there. There's two actual things that you've got going if you've got the extra carriers in addition to AI carriers too, with a whole bunch of extra configurations. So for our purposes today we're just going to use this bottom one. Click that, and we have all of the our options here. Let me go to the cockpit. It'll probably make it a little bit easier to see this stuff. Okay. Alright, now oops, lost it, so get it back. Okay. Alright, so we're going to start it, we don't want any of those. Don't want any of those. We want number 8, which is the Nimitz with the T-45 carrier qualifications. Okay, now we can put it ahead of us, whatever, but we're going to place it at that waypoint, number 5, and QE Pro, so number 6. So we've now spawned the carrier. It's stationary at that intersection. So now we need to figure out what we want to do in terms of where it's going to be heading. Alright, so typically when the carriers spawn, they spawn at a heading of 350 degrees, which will eventually run it into the United States. So we're going to essentially put it into motion by pushing forward. Okay. Then we're going to come back and we're going to make it turn right 90 degrees, so it's heading east. And that would be number 6, turn right 90 degrees. So we now have the carrier spawned, and it's essentially where we want it to be, heading in the direction essentially that we want it to be. Alright, so we're back outside the aircraft. Everything's ready to go. It's time to jump into the airplane. You'll notice that you have the parking brake on or off depending on whether or not you see the pilot. Parking brake's on right now, so no pilot. If you take the parking brake off, he shows up. Hi there. Okay, let's put the brake back on, jump in the cockpit, and now you can see that I do have track IR, and I also have Easy Dock. Okay, so I've got all of these things mapped. I've got the engine gauges mapped. I've got the left console mapped, right console mapped. All of these things are mapped according to track IR and Easy Dock, and that's a separate tutorial, so I'll let you fool around with that on your own. Okay, let's close the cockpit up. Well, why don't we start? It's a little bit hot out today. Okay, so we have the brake on. We are going now to start the engines. Okay. Alright, now to do that, what we do is we come over here. Let's come and use that view we've got. Alright, lock it down. And now we're going to push start for number 2. Okay, I like to monitor the gauges. And you'll see that you don't get a light off until about 20% RPM. That basically keeps the engine from exploding instead of lighting off properly. Okay, we've just introduced fuel. Exhaust temperature indicates that the engine is in good shape, not exploding. We have power coming up here, fuel flow, oil pressure, and the fuel quantity looks good. Okay. Alright, let's light up number 2, or excuse me, number 1. Okay. Once again, we're going to monitor the instruments. And if we were modeling this correctly, we would be introducing fuel right about now to get the light off. Okay, so our EGT looks good, RPM looks good, fuel flow looks good, fuel quantity, oil pressure, PTS. Alright. Okay. Alright, so we are now in the cockpit with the engines rolling. Why don't we configure for takeoff? For that we're going to use half flaps. Whoops. Okay, and we're going to make sure that the hook is up. Hook is up, gear is down. Alright, everything looks pretty good. Time to close the canopy. Alright, canopy should be coming down. Let's put that guard back on. Alright. Okay, so we're ready to roll out to the active. I'm going to take the parking brake off, and we're going to come on out to the active runway. Okay, so I'm going to put the brake on. The typical way to take off, at least the procedures that they use, I believe, is that they put the brake on, run it up to full power, brake off. Okay, we've got full power, gauges look good, and we're off. Now the differential steering is how you use it right now with the brakes, and then once you're up about 65, 70 knots, the rudder's going to essentially be effective. I like to up trim it a little bit. Okay, we're coming through 120, so we've got enough speed. Now we don't want to get too fast too quick because we need to raise the gear before 165 knots. Bring the flaps up. Okay. So we're looking good. We're a little under 200 knots, so I'm going to pull the power back. And we can start looking for the carrier. What's our altitude? We're at 300, so let's keep climbing. I'm going to come up to about 800 feet because at 600 feet, the normal carrier pattern altitude, we get don't sink call-outs quite a bit. So I'm going to come up a little bit higher than that. Okay. Now, if we're looking for the carrier, up to add-ons and it'll tell you where it is. So we're at 8 miles 90 degrees. Okay, we're at 900. Let's come down to 800. Okay, that's about 800. Okay, so we're coming up on 90 degrees, 800 feet. Alright, let's configure the aircraft to carrier arrest. Hooks down. We're going to take out the speed brakes because we don't want to deploy anything higher than about 165. Okay, gears coming down, and we're going to use full flaps. Okay, now at this point,
don't sink.
Oh, there we go. See, there's
don't
that
sink.
call out. So let's go back up to 800 so we don't have to listen to that all day. With the plane as dirty as it is, you're going to need about 90% power. So you can see
don't sink.
Right there that we are.
Don't sink.
Okay.
Don't sink.
Start looking for the boat
don't
again.
Sink. Don't sink.
Okay, I'm bringing it up to 800. Okay, let's see if we can keep it there. Okay, there's the boat. We're in pretty good shape. Alright, you can see the angle of attack indicator. That's essentially telling you that you're either in the right attitude or not. Obviously a solid yellow on that traffic light means that you're with the proper attitude. Red below means too fast. Green above means you're too slow. So we're now getting into the right attitude and airspeed. Okay, so we're in pretty good shape. But as I say, now we're a little slow, so I'm going to add some power. Lock down the head. And at this point, you're pretty much eyeballing it in. So that tells us we're a little fast, that red light below. So we're starting to get a feel for it. Looks like I'm a little bit left.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
You can see the speed is about right.
Don't sink.
Okay, I think that's pretty good.
Don't sink.
Alright, we're now about to start seeing the ball.
Don't sink. Don't sink.
Our attitude is good, a little fast
Don't
there.
sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
Okay, you can see the ball.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Don't sink. Don't sink.
All right, and we're on. Okay, let's put the canopy up. Get some fresh air in here. Alright, we need to take the hook off. Alright, let's taxi around just a little bit. We're going to go over to that catapult over there on the right hand side. We're going to leave the flaps out on full. Hooks up. Okay, so now let's come over to the catapult. Lock the head, view. That's pretty good. Now let's take a look on the outside. And I want you to look at this arrestor cable. This is the important thing right here. We need to be a little bit forward of this because the actual catapult connection gear comes out of the aircraft right here. You'll see that in a moment. Okay? Let's go back inside the aircraft. Now we need to come forward just a little bit more, and if you come too far, then you just use Shift P. You can reverse back just a little bit. Okay, now let's take a look. See what we got. That's about right. Okay, so I think our placement's pretty good. So let's go back into the aircraft. Let's close the canopy. Canopy's coming down. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to use those key commands. Shift plus U. That brings the bar down in most every other aircraft, like the Dino Cataneo Goshawk and the Super Hornet from Vertical Reality. Shift U would be how you'd have that bar thing come down. Anyway, in this aircraft, it's a little bit different. It doesn't come down until you actually arm the catapult. But let's go outside and look, and you'll see what we're doing with those various keystrokes. Alright. Okay, we're outside, we're buttoned up. Now we've got the spoilers out, so we probably need to have those back in so we don't lose some airspeed. Let's put those back in. Okay, so the aircraft is pretty clean. We're now pushing Shift U, which would, in those other aircraft, would bring out the bar, connect it to the catapult. And now we're going to arm the bar with Shift I. Now you can see the blast screen coming up back here. All right, and this is the connection equipment that we talked about. All right. So look at how that wheel is forward of the shuttlecock for the catapult. That's just the way the plane is designed. So we're essentially ready to fly. We've got the spoilers in, full flaps, and I will undeploy this just momentarily so that you can see what it looks like from the cockpit. Okay, Okay, now we're in the cockpit. Look at the guy over here. He's the launch officer. Okay, we're arming. And now he's saying it's okay to go. So, full power. And then our last thing that we have mapped is the trigger, which is control in space. So when you're ready to go, boom, and you're off. So, there you have the tutorial on how to do carrier traps and launches from the Nimitz. Put that stuff in and the flaps. Okay, and essentially it's a lot of fun. So anyway, I hope this video has been hopefully informative and interesting, and hopefully we will see you again soon in another video tutorial. Anyway, I hope this helps any of you who are trying to do this, because as I say, some of the documentation is a little bit hard to find. That being said, Razbam has done a wonderful job with the plane itself. It's just a lot of fun to fly. Alright guys, happy landings.